friends, do you have a regimen of supplements that you take at night? Is zinc one of them? Why do they even put zinc in a multivitamin? Ever thought about that? Maybe you take it to boost your immune system, or you may only suck on zinc throat lozenges when you have a cold. Well, in this video, I'm going to answer questions about zinc and tell you exactly why I take zinc as a part of my supplement regimen. Had you ever had a small cut that just wouldn't heal, or a nail that wouldn't grow back normal? Both have happened to me. About 2 months ago, this little finger, well, I got it infected. I was basically cutting my nail and somehow the nail cutter slipped and sliced me on the side of my finger. Now, I didn't think anything of it. It was rather superficial. But the next day, I noticed that it was swollen. And then eventually, I didn't take care of it, and the swelling actually extended around my narrow bed. So I got what I call a paronychia. It was pretty inflamed around my bed. It was so swollen that I can feel the pressure on my nail bed. But the thing is, it didn't really hurt. It wasn't really beefy red. I wasn't having a fever, and it wasn't really warm. There was no pus. So I thought I could just take care of it myself. It's just going to go away. Well, eventually it didn't go away. And I realized, I got to do something. So I started putting a bunch of topical stuff, and I was trying to figure out what I should actually take as a part of my nutritional supplement to really power my immune system. And I even thought about giving myself antibiotics. But as an infectious disease physician, I really don't like prescribing to myself the prescriptions that I prescribe to people, because every time you take it, whether it's good reason or not, the antibiotics will change your gut microbiome. In addition, there are so many side effects. So honestly, I was not going to prescribe antibiotics to myself. If I was going to take it, I would ask somebody to do it. And so I asked my colleague, I showed him my finger. It was pretty messed up. And literally the nail bed was dented because of all the pressure of the swelling. It had like a spoon-shaped crevasse in my nail. And he looked at it and he's like, oh, maybe you should see a hand surgeon. And, I hemmed and I hawed, and eventually I got too busy. So I really never saw a hand surgeon. I just doubled down on my topical remedies and my supplements. And eventually the swelling came down, but the nail was permanently dented in. Literally had a curvature. See how my nail has a curvature? And that started at the very bottom. I wasn't sure if my nail would grow back normally, but it did. And slowly as a new nail came out, and I realized, wow, my new nail is coming out. It's going to be normal. It's going to be okay. So I'm waiting for the top to fall off. This whole process takes a few months because a nail takes about 3 months from the bottom to the top for it to grow to the top. And honestly, I had thought about what if my nail would be messed up forever, right? And maybe I should have pulled the trigger and seen a hand specialist, but I didn't do it. And like most people, we all minimize our own health problems. So I never got around to making the appointment. I just figured, my finger's not going to fall off. It's not red, not inflamed. It doesn't hurt. The nail just looks pretty funky. But I know I'm not the only one struggling with my nail or my skin, right? Because that is what I see very commonly amongst the people who just surround me. And these are normal, healthy people struggling with skin problems. And unfortunately, a lot of them just suppress your immune system with topical remedies, immunosuppressants like steroids, because that's the way that society thinks that that's making their skin healthier. I met up with her friend last week and I looked at her arm. It was all scratched up. She's like, nah, it's okay. My dog scratched me up. Well, how long did that happen? Oh, a few weeks ago. Well, that's not okay. Because remember how when you were a kid, you got scratched up from falling off a bike and you got up and the next day your skin was already healing? That is how we should all be. So it's not okay that you have open wounds on your arms or feet or nails or whatever, knees. You should be healing because all those are basically entry points for germs to go beyond your skin and into deeper tissue. Too many people struggle with skin healing, whether it's easily bruising or literally unable to heal superficial wounds. Now, I got scratched up yesterday, but you don't see anything because I double down on powering my immune cells when I get injured. And obviously, they were not deep tissue injuries. And my friend, she didn't have a deep tissue injury. She couldn't heal superficial ulcers. And poor wound healing just tells me that she has a poor diet. And then she fessed up that she actually lost quite a few pounds recently because she hasn't been eating. So when you're not eating, you're pretty much missing zinc. 2 billion people around the globe are zinc deficient. And we think in America that we eat well and we're protected because our bellies are full. So then how come so many people have skin ulcers, have eczema, have dry skin, right? things that don't heal. Far too many people believe that supplements are expensive pee because they're taking supplements that don't actually help them. If you're taking your supplements right, they actually should be helping you heal wounds. I literally heal wounds. That's my day job. And zinc is just one of my tools. It is a supplement that's found over the counter, but I look at it as a way to prevent DNA mutations, to prevent infections, and to prevent cancers. And if you're not getting enough zinc in your diet, whether that's because you're not eating, because maybe you have poor teeth, you can't find the time, you're on a restricted diet, you're on a weight loss diet, or you're vegan or vegetarian, or you're on the standard American diet, which is essentially a junk food diet. If you're not making sure that you have zinc in your food and that you're absorbing it, then there's nothing wrong with supplementing as long as you know how to do it. Like with every other nutrient and drugs, there's always a fine, narrow window of effect. And it's always preferred that you can get it through food. So where do you find zinc? Well, here are the top 10 foods with the highest amounts of zinc. However, one of these can harbor a deadly bacteria called Vibrio, and I'll let you know about them later. But let's get back to zinc and how people get deficient. So if you've ever had a paper cut that doesn't heal, that should be your first clue that maybe you're lacking some zinc. And by that time, you've already put yourself at risk for more serious conditions because zinc controls not only how fast your skin heals, but the rest of your body, all your cells, including your immune cell, and how they repair and rebuild. Like I said, there's over 2 billion people worldwide that are literally zinc deficient today. That's nearly 1 in 4 people. That means billions of people just don't appreciate how important zinc is because most people, they don't even have that second thought. And a lot of them ignore these subtle signs. Slow wound healing. Maybe you're fatigued. Maybe you have thinning hair. You have constant repetitive colds. And routine blood work, it doesn't check for zinc. So silently, your enzymes or hormones and immune cells, they're literally starving and falling apart. Zinc is a body's construction manager. It activates more than 300 enzymes that control DNA repair, cell division, and protein synthesis. And without it, you can't do anything. Wounds stay inflamed and stay open. Immune cells lose the ability to coordinate. Zinc turns on your repair mode. Common symptoms are like slow wound healing, but also you can lose your taste or smell. You can get spots on your nails. You can also struggle with acne and hair loss, low energy, and poor immunity. It's essentially your body's recovery switch is stuck, right? And if you replenish it, give it some zinc, that may be the missing key. And deficiency is everywhere because we have soil depletion. Modern farms, they strip zinc from crops. They stop rotating crops. We have intensive monocropping and overuse of chemical fertilizers. That depletes a lot of our trace minerals, like zinc. And zinc doesn't regenerate naturally. It's mined from rocks. So when the soil is over-tilled, zinc is washed away faster than it could be replenished. And as a result, even the healthy foods we eat, like our grains, beans, and vegetables, they contain 20 to 70% less zinc than 50 years ago. The World Health Organization calls this the hidden hunger. So you can eat enough calories, yet still be malnourished at the cellular level, the level that counts. So why don't industrialized nations recognize zinc deficiency? Because I see it all the time. And why are they zinc deficient? Because their diets are loaded with ultra-processed carbohydrates, that is. And when you're only eating parts of the grain that don't have the zinc, because the zinc is on the outside, the bran and the fiber. So when you eat whole grains, you get the zinc, but when you eat ultra-processed carbs, you don't get the zinc, then you're going to get deficient. And that's eating basically white flour, polished rice, all those refined foods. That's the other reason why they're not healthy for you. You probably don't think you're eating them. Are you eating bread, pasta, cereals? Those are pretty much stripped of zinc. Even fortified products, they add synthetic zinc oxide, a poorly absorbed form, often less than 20% bioavailable. Historically, people soaked, sprouted, or fermented grains, which freed zinc up, but those methods have vanished because we have industrialized baking. And what about vegans and vegetarians? Well, if you don't prepare your food properly, you may eat high amounts of phytates that basically bind to zinc. That means if you're not soaking your grains and legumes, that is a zinc trap to prevent you from absorbing the zinc in the food. And this includes legumes, nuts, whole grains. They all contain phytates. It's pretty much universal in many, many plants. So if your culture rely heavily on unfermented cereals or plant staples, then you could absorb as little as 10 to 15% of dietary zinc. Food preparation is essential. And traditional cultures, they learn this and they soak, they sprout, and they ferment their food. But today we forgot how to cook, right? And we want to do things ultra fast. So what do? We eat ultra processed foods. Is this stressing you out? And for some people, feeling stressed means that they get a lot of reflux. So what do? They take antacids to reduce that stomach acid. Well, low stomach acid, that is common with stress, with aging, and antacids, that also depletes your zinc. Zinc needs stomach acid to ionize and to be absorbed in the small intestine. How many people are taking proton pump inhibitors and antacids to reduce that stomach acid, huh? Aging by itself reduces stomach acid. What if you have an H. pylori infection? All these reduce your zinc uptake. And then you have people with intestinal inflammation, celiac, IBS, Crohn's, leaky gut, that further reduces absorption and increases loss of zinc through the gastrointestinal tract.
Hi friends, I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
A problem with underdeveloped regions where they eat cereals-based diet and then they don't eat other animal sources of proteins or legumes. But in wealthy nations, they adopt their own restrictive diets. They eat like low protein, highly ultra processed, basically unbalanced vegan foods, thinking that that's the way for health, or for whatever reason they want to do that diet. And they're not recognizing that they're getting zinc deficient. So it is true, zinc is best from animal sources, meat, eggs, seafoods. You get 2 to 3 times more bioavailable zinc than from plant sources. But it's really not animal versus plants. It's bioavailability, soil quality, and how your food prep is done. And then there is demand. Chronic stress, infections, injuries, exercise, they all increase your zinc turnover. If you're a growing kid, you're increasing your zinc turnover. And zinc is rapidly used up by a liver to bind to heavy metals to counteract the oxidative stress. So now you have inflammation, you have toxins, you have just natural metabolism. So you divert all these zinc sources to defense mode, leaving very little for your immune cells, your hormones, and tissue repair. And this is why when you're sick and chronically stressed, you are more likely to be zinc deficient, even though you're eating. So when you cut your finger, you got 4 stages of healing. They all require zinc. Just clotting requires zinc. That helps your platelets to plug up the wound. And inflammation requires zinc. Zinc activates macrophages and neutrophils. Proliferation, growing your collagen, growing blood vessels, they all require zinc. Remodeling your tissue, reorganizing scar tissue, that requires zinc. That's why when you don't have enough zinc, you can struggle with chronic wounds, chronic ulcers, chronic dry skin, what we call eczema, or just dry skin for a long, long time. So zinc supplements are over the counter. So how do you pick the right zinc supplement? Well, it comes in many forms. And most commonly, you will find zinc gluconate, zinc acetate, zinc piconolate, zinc sulfate, zinc citrate, zinc orotate, and zinc methionine. These forms differ in solubility and bioavailability. But the truth is that your gut absorbs mostly all of them well. Piconolate and methionine tend to be slightly better, while gluconate and acetate are often used in cold lozenges due to good mucosal absorption. But zinc sulfate, it's the harshest on the stomach and can cause nausea more easily. For daily long-term use, piconolate, citrate, or methionine-bound zinc tend to be the best tolerated. However, there is a maximum safe intake for adults, and that's 40 milligrams per day, according to the U.S. Institute of Medicine. And that means if you're chronically taking zinc, you really need to check that dose. I once met a physician taking 100 milligrams of zinc daily during 2020, right, to immune boost. I gently reminded him that, long-term zinc on that high of a dose may not be so healthy because you deplete your copper. And when you overdose, those symptoms happen about weeks and months after taking over 50 milligrams a day. And that includes nausea, stomach pain, loss of appetite, metallic taste, vomiting, diarrhea, headaches. And most importantly, you get yourself copper deficient. The thing is, zinc and copper, they compete for the same transporter in your gut. So too much zinc blocks copper absorption, which leads to anemia, low white blood cell counts, weakness, neurological symptoms, and immune suppression. That's the opposite of what you want to do, right? And when you have extreme zinc overdose, usually from industrial exposure or your massive supplement misuse, can cause pancreatitis, low HDL cholesterol, and profound immune dysfunction. Like I said, you need to know how to use supplements. And when you don't take the time to learn how to do it right from the beginning, you risk learning the hard way and course correct. Believe it or not, the history of zinc is surprisingly recent. Now, even though ancient civilizations, they actually used zinc containing alloys like brass, the element itself wasn't recognized clearly until the 1500s. It wasn't purified until the 1700s. But the real turning point came in the 20th century when physicians in Iran and Egypt, they noticed young men with severe growth stunting, delayed puberty, chronic infections, and anemia. And 1961 documented the first modern cases of human zinc deficiency. That proved that zinc was an essential element for human biology. Now, that discovery changed global nutrition. And by 1974, zinc was officially recognized as an essential trace element for people. Now, since then, research has shown that zinc influences more than 300 enzymes, immune cell activation, DNA synthesis, reproductive hormones, and structural integrity for nearly every tissue in your body. The bottom line is you don't have to be zero to have health problems when you don't have enough zinc. And the richest whole food sources are oysters, by far the highest, mushrooms, crab, beef, lamb, pumpkin seeds, hemp seeds, sesame seeds, cashews, chickpeas, lentils, quinoa, and whole grains like oats and wheat germ. So many plant foods, they contain zinc, but absorption still varies depending on preparation and where it's grown. Now, if your food is basically white flour, white rice, well, they contain very little zinc because refining removes the germ layer where zinc is concentrated. And this is why a very high carb, low variety diets of ultra processed foods often lead to zinc deficiency in developing and developed countries. And again, you may be thinking you eat enough zinc, but absorption inhibitors, they can explain why people, even eating a variety of zinc-rich foods, don't get enough zinc. And I mentioned phytates earlier. They're found throughout the plant kingdom in whole grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes. They bind very tightly to zinc in the gut, and that reduces your absorption. This is why traditional cultures, they naturally evolve soaking, fermenting, sprouting, and making, things like sourdough. These processes, they break down phytates and they dramatically increase zinc availability. But your diet may also be high in iron and high in calcium. Well, guess what? They compete with zinc in the intestinal level. So how many of you are taking iron or calcium-rich supplements? Maybe that's why your zinc is low. And how many of you take a supplement that literally would have both? What? You see the irony? No pun intended. Excessive alcohol also reduces zinc absorption and increases your urinary excretion. Chronic inflammation, high sugar intake, and gut disorders such as Crohn's, celiac disease, inflammatory bowel diseases, they all reduce the uptake of zinc because inflamed intestinal barriers, they just can't absorb the zinc. And if you eat a lot of ultra-processed foods, you're probably going to have a poor gut if you don't already have a poor gut. And again, if you're on antacids, long-term PPIs, or you're doing vegetarian wrong, not processing your foods, relying on unsprouted grains and legumes, or you're pregnant, or you have other chronic infections or inflammations, or you're simply over 65, you do have a higher need of zinc because your absorption is lower or you may demand more. And this easily explains why there are over 2 billion people globally who are at marginal or moderate zinc deficiency. Ultimately, people need to realize zinc deficiency, it's not uncommon because we don't focus on eating zinc and our food system is built on getting zinc out. We're heavily relied on processed foods. We have a stress-driven life that causes more inflammation to then erode our tiny little zinc stores. But the reality is the body doesn't store much zinc. It's not like iron or fat-soluble vitamins like B12. Zinc you have to eat every day. And that's why even slight deficiencies can show up very quickly for poor wound healing, dry skin, eczema, low immunity, hair shredding, getting spots on your nail, loss of smell or taste, appetite loss, fatigue, or even brain fog. Yep, those are our signs of zinc deficiency. Sure, you may have a small amount of zinc in your muscles and bones and organs, but it's so tightly bound to inside proteins and enzymes that it's not sitting there in a usable form as a storage pool in the way iron is stored, or ferritin or vitamin B12. So that means your body can't pull out zinc easily when you need it. and instead you rely almost entirely on daily intake. And when you get sick, inflamed, you're stressed or injured, your immune system pulls zinc out of your bloodstream rapidly to build immune cells and repair tissue. So that pushes you to become deficient faster than with other minerals. And this is why even mild absorption problems, poor diet, quality, chronic inflammation, high alcohol intake, or long-term antacid use can create a chronic low zinc status in just a few weeks. So while your body may have zinc, if it's not kept in a free, accessible form, then you really need to take it regularly in your food, or maybe consider taking a supplement. Now, your immune system does depend on zinc to mature. Without it, T cells stay immature. They're like soldiers, they're never trained for battle. And studies shown that zinc actually shorten colds by up to 40%. Low zinc correlates with higher infection risk in children and the elderly. And zinc supports antiviral defense, even against those viruses that damage your taste and smell. Your immune system can't fight what it can't see, so zinc kind of gives it 20/20 vision. But again, be aware of the extremes. Too much zinc can block copper and weaken your immune system, opposite of what you want to do. It's about precision, not mega doses, and you may have subtle signs, right? Chronic fatigue, loss of taste or smell, slow wound healing, brittle nails, hair thinning, acne, or frequent infections. Zinc deficiency could even lower your mood and motivation because it's tied to serotonin and dopamine balance. So that means deficiency can mimic mild depression or burnout. But before you rush to get out zinc, check with your medical doctor and make sure you're doing it properly because zinc becomes harmful when taken in excess for long periods. But the good news is when you eat zinc in food, that doesn't happen. The food protects you. So work on the food daily first and consider taking a low-dose nutritional supplement to fill in those nutritional gaps. And that's why I put the amount of zinc that I did in my own supplement. And by the way, when you eat oysters are filter feeder, right? They're filtering all the zinc and concentrating it. Well, they also filter a lot of Vibrio and concentrating that. Vibrio is actually poisonous. And if you want to learn more about why I use what I used, watch the next video.